This is the AS exam paper 2 section A, looking at Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby top tips exam video. So just so everybody's aware, obviously for AS there are two papers that are 50% each. They're both an hour and 30 minutes long. Gatsby is worth 25% of your overall grade. And we're looking at AO1, AO2 and AO3 for the mark scheme for the Gatsby exam. So what you need to know. You have 45 minutes for this section of your exam, so half the time. You're being asked specifically to look at Fitzgerald's writing style and what techniques he uses. You're given an extract to base your analysis on, but you need to be able to make links with the context of the extract within the wider novel, so where this extract fits in the storytelling, and also make links to motifs or themes that appear in this extract that might appear in other places as well. And finally, you need to make links as well as you're going through the wider historical and literary context, so how it fits in to a broader bit of analysis. Okay, so this is a close-up of the extract. It doesn't look like much, but there are tons of devices here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and highlight all the things you could have talked about, or you can talk about if you want to have a practice, if you wanted to talk about how Fitzgerald tells the story here. So we start off with sympathetic fallacy. We've got our juxtaposition, personification, a metaphor, a link to the gold motif, which runs throughout the novel, character description of Tom Buchanan as we first meet him, a link to the motif of eyes, which carries on through the novel, more juxtaposition, a metaphor, some character description of Tom, a juxtaposition of how he has paternal contempt in his voice, even towards people he liked, this idea of he's a complex man, bias of the narrator, quite important when you think about Nick Carraway's role in telling the story and what he reveals to us. Aesthetic listing of features to give you an idea of how big the vista, the view is from the house. A range of oxymorons and juxtapositions because they are weirdly representational of the upper classes in the 1920s. A series of similes in the final two paragraphs to describe the girls and their setting. A boom on a banner to show Tom entering the room, to stark contrast to the fluffy balloon-like descriptions of the girls. What he does to the wind, the natural part of the room, and the women ballooning to the floor in a metaphor at his arrival. So there's lots and lots of things that you could focus on here. So what you could do is just look at how Tom is described as a character. You could look at the character bias of the narrator. It's completely up to you. So once you've had a look at these, you need to figure out what you think the 5 best storytelling devices are here. The ones that will get you the most marks are the ones that you can link to the novel as a whole, or the genre as a whole. You need to make a note of the context within the novel. So this is the first time we meet Tom, Daisy and Jordan. Okay, and this is how this is presented by Carraway, remembering that the story is a flashback. Carraway is telling us this from the future. He already knows everything that's going to happen, so he's casting people deliberately in specific lights. And of course, if you can identify any motifs or stylistic features, and you can show where else they appear in the novel. So gold and the mention of his eyes are those two things. You could make a link to other examples of that in the novels elsewhere. Right, so once you've annotated everything, you pick your top 5, the ones that have the most to talk about in terms of wider context. You analyze those, and in your final part of your paragraph is where you make your link to other parts of the story, why it's important that at the beginning we find this out, so link to the structure of the story and where this sets into the structure of the story. Obviously, because it's lit lang, you're focusing on how Fitzgerald tells the story. That's not what he tells you, but what devices he uses to show you the information and to make you think and feel a certain way about the characters. Okay, so 10 minutes of planning. The more detailed your planning, the better your essay will be, the better marks you will get. Okay, because your plan is your first sequence of thoughts about the topic. When you then come to write your essay, you're then writing and adding detail into that original plan. So even if you can only get 3 paragraphs down, that's 3 high quality in-depth analysis. If we count the keyword analysis from each phrase, that's 6 really in-depth, high quality analysis that you're going to have in your essay. And you'll need less writing time if your planning is more detailed. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could pause the video on the previous page and go and have a look at which devices you would pick from the list of the annotated extract, or you could use this slide and have a go at a different extract with the same question yourself. Okay, those are my top tips for section A on paper 2 for the AS exam. Good luck.